This is part 2 of the reading I was just doing. My camera needed a break, which was fine. The Hangman in the reverse is coming out. A different card came out when I was about to put down, and that's when the camera decided to discontinue that portion of the reading. So this is picking up that portion of the reading that we were putting down. This is Hanged Man in reverse. This is Enlightenment, and that's coming out with the Shaman. It's understanding that in this cauldron contains the elixir of an alchemized understanding. There's a fire underneath it. There are various dolphins and sea creatures between kind of the Iliad and the Odyssey. I don't know if you've read Homer, but that's where we feel homeostasis. It's where we feel centered. It's the understanding that your autonomic nervous system is going to do some of the work for you automatically. And as a result, as I said before, the coexistence and there's Empress coming out with the 8 of Discs. It did come out in the reverse, but it was ready to be flipped this way. Okay. It was just ready to be that way. So I'm going to put it down that way. That's the understanding that when you're building, you're not building alone ever. You're building with the resources around you, tangible, intangible. You can feel air. People say, oh, the air, you can't feel anything if you're just touching air. You know, people say, she was punching the air, she was fighting the air. That's, you are. When you're shadow boxing yourself in a mirror, you're punching at air. It's the same air that you breathe. It's the same air that oxidizes the water. It's the same air that breathes life into a fire. And that's an important correlation to make between fire, water, and air elements. The earth has depth to it, and obviously rock is very condensed pieces of earth or dirt or whatever, however you want to look at it. The point is, look, inside of that jar, all 4 elements exist with air between them. So you can look at it and you can say, oh, there's 4 discs inside of a jar. Or you could say there's a jar full of air that contains 4 discs. It's the bottom of the deck with the moon card. So like I was saying, if you were to think about this jar containing all of the elements on the earth, you could think about the universe as having the same open spaces. That's the width. It's the wide open spaces. There's more of that than there is of things that have occupied the space. Physical, tangible atoms can occupy a large amount of space, but never as much space as the air. That's the matter that, the ether that connects everything. It is literally the air you breathe. So being able to say, I'm just going to sit here and consume air is a very powerful statement in communicating to the universe this happiness that you can become enlightened to as an empress. When you say, I'm impressed by the negative space, it's like taking a black and white picture, then flipping it so that you see the inverse of that black and white picture. That's the universal dark matter or dark space that people don't understand. It's the darkness around the alien. It's the darkness inside the jar. That is the air. When you look up into the night sky, yeah, on the bottom of this, like I picked up 4 of discs, and judgment was right beneath it in the upright. It is the understanding of the ways in which we occupy space. The space is the air. It's the emptiness. It's also full of wavelengths and frequencies and reverberations of light. Some places don't have as much light. When you look up into the night sky, like I was saying, you're going to see the moon. So you say, oh, look, there's the moon. Well, between you and the moon is at light speed like 3 minutes of air, of empty space. So your thought process is electrical. And that thought process is kind of like a conductor for the air. It's conducting a unified force and a theory that becomes ethereal once you've projected your thoughts into that space. Your thoughts are actually occupying your space. Some people, I think everybody knows at least one person who is able to walk into a room, who's just able to be present in a room, and their energy is so large. It's of a magnitude that we simply don't necessarily even comprehend all the time. When people feel your presence, they either enjoy your presence or they don't. There's some people that you can't wait to see them. There's other people that you just can't wait to get away from them. That is the energetic imprint on the space around you. It's the way that you're allowing the give and take, the flow of energy one way or another, in a very specific way. It doesn't have to relate to another person. It can just be your own space. But the way that you choose to breathe, you could be doing Lamaze all by yourself. By the way, this is this deck. Not gonna say it out loud. That's where little aliens came from. And then this is the motherhood deck. I'm gonna use Nadia Turner's Fairies and Fae. I don't think that's actually what it's called, but it's more or less that's what it is. It's understanding that the earth itself uses photosynthesis to breathe, to grow the natural resources that we need to survive. Here are the old paths in reverse, coming out with the 9 of discs and the Son of Swords. I just noticed this, but he's got a treasure chest and then he's dropping roses everywhere that he goes. The sun is above his head, along with, he's got a really cool hat. So this is Lady of the Lost coming out with the Hangman in reverse. It says, give to others, treasure life and all its magic. On the old path, which was in reverse when it came out, it says, walk into unknown territory to see from a new perspective. You can sometimes forget that the things that are directly in front of you, that's kind of very Isaac Newton, but it's realizing the apple, watching an apple fall from a tree can be the definition of physics. the evidence of physics. You don't necessarily need to always have something so profound that it literally, smacks you in the head, or you bump into it, or necessarily have to interact with anything outside of your natural habitat. Just wanted to pop out the Sentinel. This is the 8 of Discs with the Empress. Yeah, that's the secret of wildlife. I was listening to someone the other day talk about how the difference between us and animals is our level of intelligence. And despite I understood what she was trying to say. I disagreed vehemently. There's part of me that the animals have figured out already that what they're supposed to have will be available, that the earth will provide, that the air will provide, that photosynthesis happens naturally in the wake of the sun and the moon. It's interesting to me that in the beginning of this, we were talking about children, my son in particular, and the top of the reading is the moon. These are the bodies, the unification of the bodies of work that have been birthed into this existence for us to experience. The storyteller was at the bottom of the deck, but it's in reverse, meaning that this is not a story. This is not a fabrication. That's the truth. I'm just going to keep shuffling because I like to see for myself when I'm doing or watching tarot. I like to see the card emerge on its own rather than being forced. Yes. So here's the Thimble Witch. It did come out in the reverse because it's already been unified. It's like the sewing of fabrics. It is not a fabrication. It is the fact that the earth is already completely in homeostasis, always has been, and it does know how to return to that state on its own. Does human life exist upon it? Upon its face? Yes, certainly does. But the way that people interpret life and life forms does not have to do with what we've done. For us to be pretentious enough to believe that the earth couldn't exist without human life is rather astounding. And like I was saying about the plants and the animals and everything that exists naturally, we're not the same species. That's correct. But if we're gonna homogeneously agree that maybe perhaps all of the mammal life has a unifying force amongst them that makes life possible, they also understand the cycle of life and death. They learn how to adapt. It's like having an adapter. When you go to different countries, you need different adapters for the different frequencies and voltages, for the hurts, the pain. How frequently do you feel that pain? How does your specific environment lend itself to electrical input and output? That's the give and the take. So your electrical input and output from your brain can be attached to something much bigger, larger, and magnanimous than any one entity could possibly provide. I always think it's funny to think about the Milky Way and think about the places that milk comes from. That's the one thing that humans are kind of strange like that. You don't really see other species of animal drinking other species of animals' breast milk, except for humans. We drink goat's milk, cow's milk. We live in the Milky Way. That's what I mean by understanding that your body and this earth, this body. I was watching also The Three Body Problem on Netflix. Amazing series. Only 8 episodes long, by the way. Really good watch if you're interested in science, the precipice of science versus, I suppose, spiritual meaning and intention. I'm going to clarify with this deck and then I'm done. Yeah, the Wild God is here underneath it all. I think the Thimble Witch already came out, but the Wild God was underneath that. It says, go to the woods, to moss, to mud, to magic. That's what the Wild God has to say. It's about that same connection between. There's mushrooms coming out with the 9 of discs and the old paths. Okay, this is giving me a halogen light bulb. I don't know why, but it's hallucinogens. It's lighting up the areas of